Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone. My name is Lara Barr. I'm the owner and founder of Emerging Educational Consulting. We are a consulting firm that provides one-to-one mentorship for parents and students to the end of the college application process. When I talk about what I do, I am passionate about we grow good humans. And what better way to do that than to empower parents and students with information? So here we are, providing you with an amazing conversation with Neal Crosson. He is the admissions I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but you are the leading admissions director at VERTO Education. Anybody who knows my practice and anybody knows my values knows that VERTO Education is a huge part of our recommendations for all students who come through emerging. And I think what we want to do today first is have you do your own bio and introduce yourself. And then the very first question I just want you to answer is, what is VERTO Education?
All right. Well, thanks, Laura. Yeah, my name is Neal Crosson. I'm the National Admissions Manager here at VERTO Education. I run a lot of our in-person recruitment and a lot of promotion of our programs to high school audiences, to college counselors, education consultants, and students and families, of course. So I guess to dive in, or rather to talk a little bit about my own experience with international education. For me, it started way back before I was even in college. I credit a lot of it to my parents. They lived overseas for about 6 years in Italy. So I grew up hearing a lot of Italian in my household, a lot of learning about Italian culture, to the point where I looked around and I thought, like, oh, we must be Italian. My 23andMe will reflect that is not the case, but what it did instill in me was just this idea that there's a big wide world around us. There's a lot of lessons that we can gain through taking the leap and interacting with it. So I was a Spanish major throughout college. I studied abroad, several more times than most people have. I studied abroad in Istanbul, Turkey, studying international development, in Costa Rica, studying Spanish, and then as a rising senior, I studied overseas in Spain, which, upon graduation, Spain actually became my home. I took on a contract as a English as a second language teacher. Supposed to be 1 year, 1 year turned to two turned into a master's degree, and 3 years. COVID happened. I found myself back in the United States, and this time I was working as a program instructor in Hawaii for about a year for a gap year organization. So I'm really well versed in sort of the world of international education, of experiential ed and gap. And I finally found my home here at VERTO Education for the past 3.5 years. So to answer that question of what is VERTO Education, to put it in simple terms, VERTO Education is a freshman year of college study abroad organization that provides students with what I like to call a sort of gap year without the gap experience. All of these benefits of a gap year, but with a college academic backbone. So students are, getting those gap year benefits of learning about different cultures, getting firsthand experiences with, different communities, building up intercultural competency, but still progressing along their college degree plan, staying on track to graduate within 4 years. So VERTO Education, we are a first year abroad organization that partners with over 50 colleges and universities across the United States and abroad to provide students with a gap year without the gap experience. That's all part of their freshman year of college.
Good job. That's amazing. I want to expand on this a little bit. What do you mean kind of gap year without the gap year experience? Like, how is that first year abroad differ from a traditional gap year experience?
That's a great question. And it's important to distinguish, what is first year abroad versus what is a gap year. I think in the mind of a lot of people, gap year can be sort of a poorly defined term, right? But to put it simply, a gap year is intentional time spent between high school graduation and the start of college, in which students are engaging in some kind of experience, whether it's a travel experience, a work experience, volunteer, or something academic. But really, the intentionality behind the gap year, it's not a vacation, I think. And I think parents might have this misconception that, oh, my student's going to be, my son, child, daughter, was going to be backpacking across Europe for 3 months, and it's a paid vacation essentially. But it really is about the intentionality behind it, and asking students to push their comfort zones, to self-reflect, and to really think about what they're going to gain from that experience. So that is my loose definition of what a gap year is. Where it differs from first year abroad is going to be the academic focus. So what first year abroad, tries to do, and this is something that I alluded to, for lack of a better terms, to bridge the gap between a traditional academic track and the personal growth of a gap year. So for a student interested in, let's say, they're interested in the idea of a gap year and they don't want anything academic, then first year abroad might not be the best fit for that student. In which case, there are a lot of great gap year options, a lot of great providers. But with VERTO Education, what we do is really operate in that first year abroad space to give the best of both worlds to students.
Can you talk about one thing I know that I sometimes have a hard time explaining is students have the option at VERTO to either do a 1 semester placement, or they could do 1 year. They could do 1 year in one place, and they could do 1 year, but in 2 different places. Yes. And maybe you can speak to the different locations that you have currently.
Absolutely, yeah. At this point, as we are a growing organization, we can accommodate students for up to 3 semesters overseas. But for a 1 semester student, let's say we're focusing, let's talk about fall 25, for example. Our current seniors would be looking at a choice between 5 different locations: Buenos Aires, Argentina; Florence, Italy; Seville, Spain; London; and Prague, Czech Republic. I think a pretty diverse array of different locations. And really our model is based around the VERTO Study Center. So when we think of the 5 VERTO locations, I tend to think of them as almost as 5 satellite campuses of the greater organization. Through our admissions process, we are trying to work with students. We take a consultative approach to understand what their specific goals are out of the experience, what their academic goals are in the context of their undergraduate experience, and try to advise them on what the best fit location would be based on that. Across all 5 VERTO locations, we offer courses that align with general education requirements. So your typical first year introductory level courses. But then, as what we're starting to gravitate towards is having locations that are focused around a specific academic track. So our Prague location, we've just unveiled some awesome new business focused courses, marketing, organization and management, things like that. So that's kind of where we are setting ourselves up for any VERTO student. When they choose a location, they can expect, to be able to engage in those general education courses. Yes, students can change locations if they are a full year student. If I could go back in time, I would choose Buenos Aires in the fall. Being in the Southern Hemisphere, their seasons are flipped. So you might get some better weather in Buenos Aires than you would at least in the continental United States. And then, of course, I was a Spanish major, so I would go to Seville in the spring. Really just trying to follow the Spanish language and the best weather all year round. Yeah.
I love it. One thing that I absolutely love about your program that is so unique is your relationships with colleges. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that and how that's grown and changed over time. You have what you call direct admissions and then another type of admission. So maybe talk to us about that and how that is serving students and colleges.
Yeah. So core to our mission at VERTO is, again, like this is a great experience for students. It's an experience they can gain a lot from. But we really want to, make true on our promise of having this be part of the 4-year undergraduate timeline. So we do have partnerships with over 50 universities. The vast majority of them are located in the United States. And through our partnerships, we offer 2 main pathways to attend a VERTO partner school. I'll start with the first one, which is, I think, relevant for this time of year, is what we call our channel pathway. Channel is an invitation-only program offered through select partner universities. So, for example, University of Denver, Loyola Marymount University, William & Mary, they will select a population of first-year applicants to their schools and offer them the opportunity to participate in a VERTO education program, whether it's for 1 semester or a full academic year. But the idea is that these universities have set specific eligibility requirements that those students must meet while abroad: GPA, number of credit hours, number of semesters with VERTO, and upon successful completion of those requirements, they have this guaranteed pathway back to the school that they had applied to as a first-year applicant. So that's our channel pathway, and I bring it up because a lot of times parents, college counselors, a lot of times the first time they hear of VERTO is through their student who receives this offer from their school. The other pathway, which is as new, it's about a year old, so we launched it January of last year, is our direct transfer pathway. Direct transfer is different in that where those channel students have this closed loop from their inviting school back to them through VERTO. Direct transfer students, they come in and they have a number of different options available to them. Any one of our direct transfer schools, where these schools have set, again, those eligibility requirements: GPA, credit, and number of semesters with VERTO. And upon successful completion of those requirements, that student might have up to 5 different direct transfer schools which they can apply to on a VERTO program. So while they're abroad, and gain admission or gain guaranteed admission based on completing those requirements. So those are the 2 main pathways to a VERTO partner school.
And then we're assuming that the credits, because you have relationships, those credits do transfer.
Yeah, and to back up a little bit here, the academic experience offered through VERTO is supported by the University of New Haven. We have a special relationship with U New Haven as our academic provider, meaning that all VERTO students, regardless of whether they're pursuing the direct transfer track or they've been invited by a school, they're enrolled as University of New Haven students, taking courses live and in person overseas, and receiving a transcript that will reflect University of New Haven on that. So all of our partners have reviewed every U New Haven course for articulation or for transfer. But it also opens up the possibility for a student that, let's say, might not be interested in our partner schools, that they would then have, I guess, the comfort of knowing that, well, they have a college transcript, they have the University of New Haven courses, and they can then use that transcript to apply as a transfer student to schools outside of the VERTO consortium.
Great. We do have a question coming through. Here is the question: what does a semester look like for a student? How many classes are you required to take? Where do you live? How many students are in a class?
That is a great question. So the typical semester in VERTO terms is about 3.5 months. So our fall students, they started late August and they finished around the first or second week of December. So that is the total length of the semester. Students would expect to, much in a traditional college setting, to have a schedule Monday through Friday where they'd be taking courses throughout the morning and afternoon. Where we differ academically is that we have a experiential learning requirement for each VERTO course. What I mean by that is that for any given course, about 20% of the course content will be taught in an experiential manner. This means hands-on learning, project, site visits. One of my favorite examples is we had students in the Czech Republic studying international relations. They're taking that course. And for one of their experiential learning activities, they actually visited the Czech Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So they got to meet folks that work in the realm of international education or international relations. So really seeing that course content brought to life through experiential learning. The number of classes students are required to take is a minimum of 12 credits. So 4 3-credit courses, and they can take up to 17. So if you could take a biology or chemistry course, some of those 4-credit courses that have a lab component with them. So it's anywhere between 12 and 17, but 12 being the requirement. And students are provided housing, whether it's a homestay or living with a host family in Spain or Argentina, a student residence, or a shared student apartment like we have in Florence, Italy, where our students actually live in their own apartments throughout the city of Florence. I have the second question here. I'm happy to answer that as well. All right. We do offer institutional aid to our students. It comes in 2 main forms: a needs-based grant, which is the VERTO Opportunity Grant for students that demonstrate high financial need through the FAFSA, Student Aid Index, as well as our VERTO Scholars Award, which is a merit-based scholarship. It's tiered based on GPA bands, so students can receive anywhere between $1,500 to $5,000 based on their high school performance. And we do help students complete transfer applications when the time comes. To give an example with our direct transfer schools in particular, we use a VERTO partner application that a student would complete up to 5 applications to our direct transfer schools overseas. And then we would assist the student in sending those off to the respective partner schools. So for our students, let's again thinking about our past fall class, this comes around the VERTO midterms. So around the second week of October, students are sending out some of those direct transfer applications. But regardless of that student's destination, there is academic support. There is we have a great team we call College Counseling, Academic and Transfer Services, or CCATS, here at VERTO to help students prepare applications when the time comes.
That's great. I think one of the things that we sometimes as college counselors get a little confused about is what if they don't want a direct transfer or the channel program, but they are like, well, I want to apply to another school that might not be on, a partner school. And what we've done, and I'll just have you check me, is what we have done is we're like, well, we have to do individual research and call that school and see if they will take the credits from New Haven if you're going to, or we have some students who may get in to a school and then defer. Any tips on that? Are we in the right direction when we're guiding students in that way?
I think you're absolutely in the right direction. For students that are going outside of our consortium, it is going to require a bit more individual research or input, work on that for that student to really understand, how those credits will transfer from, New Haven or the VERTO program to their intended school. Luckily, if there is a transfer equivalency guide that's available online, a lot of schools will publish that. If you were to just kind of plug in the UNU Haven course number, which we provide all of the course numbers for the VERTO courses or the VERTO UNU Haven courses, the students can do some research and check if there's a transfer equivalency tool. As you mentioned, reaching out to them directly is I think one of the best things that you could do, and getting that dialogue started as early as possible. On the last part about that, deferment is where things might get a little sticky, because oftentimes, and this is why I try and differentiate between gap year and first year abroad. You might have a school that says we are very gap year friendly. Yes, deferment, if you want to do a gap year, that sounds great. We encourage it because they know that student is going to come or arrive on their campus, ready to go with a level of maturity that rivals the students that started traditionally. The reason why I say it gets sticky is because VERTO being a first year abroad program, and with that relationship with UNU Haven, deferments are not always friendly to students attending another institution during that deferment period.
Right.
So when I'm talking to students, if they're interested in a school outside the consortium, I am typically talking about the transfer route as a University of New Haven student versus deferment.
That is very helpful. I think that's a really good distinction. And I think over COVID, I think we ran into that exact issue as everybody came back. It was like, wait, is this a transfer or is this direct? Or is this first year student? One of the questions I want to go back to is this criteria for transfer. It feels like you're saying it's guaranteed if there is a certain qualifications that are met. Can you discuss what those qualifications might be?
Yeah. So as at least in the context of our direct transfer schools,
yeah,
it's really based around three main qualifications, being GPA at VERTO, the number of credits. Some schools might, for example, only require a single semester with VERTO and 12 credits completed. Some might be full year programs and they might require a 3.0, 24 or 30 credits across 2 semesters. So it really depends. One of the cool things on our website, if you get the chance to visit, is that under our direct transfer page, each of those schools has a little section that says learn more. So when students click on that, it takes them to a mini site and it breaks down a lot of frequently asked questions, particularly around matriculation requirements. So generally speaking, if a student meets those GPA thresholds, number of credits and semesters, then they can have that direct transfer pathway to those schools. Where a little bit more research is required, especially on those mini sites, might be around specific majors. So some majors might be ineligible for the direct transfer pathway, particularly those that might require, let's say, an audition or a portfolio, or require students to take classes in a sequential manner. A lot of performing arts, nursing, or engineering majors come to mind. Although that is, an area of growth for us as an organization. In particular, we are proud of the number of STEM offerings for our students to really appeal to a more diverse academic interest. It's why we want to specialize certain sites, like Czech Republic for business majors. But it is, as the baseline, those direct transfer requirements, if the student succeeds academically at VERTO, then the more schools they'll have available to them. But they should also be cognizant of what particular major they're interested in and if it will be eligible for direct transfer to that particular school.
That's great. That's another great tip. Anytime I'm talking to students about VERTO, the first thing I ask them is, do you have a passport? And if you don't have a passport, even if you're thinking about it, please get your passport updated and all of that kind of stuff. So that's another tip. But let's get to that for a second. What does it look like to apply to VERTO, and how long does it take? And what are you looking for in a student?
Okay, yeah. So our application process is pretty streamlined. Students apply directly on our website. Top banner right there. Apply now. And with that, students will fill out a simple form, which will then assign them a senior admissions counselor. So we have our senior admissions counselors work directly with prospective students. It's a consultative approach, so that student will receive a phone call or an email from that admissions counselor. They'll set up a time to complete a family admissions call, because this is a little bit, we recognize it's a little bit different than applying to traditional universities. So we want to make sure that all parties, parent, guardian, whoever's helping that student make college decisions, is fully informed that number one, this is overseas, so it's a little bit further than your state school. And number two, what are the paths forward, beyond VERTO, as well as informing students about the different locations, what our safety protocols look like, what the academic experience looks like. The timeline for that, our requirements are that family admissions call and a transcript, the latest unofficial transcript at this point. This can take as little as a week for a student to receive an admissions decision from the time they hit apply. It can take as little as a week, and it really depends on how engaged that student is, in terms of setting up the family admissions call or acquiring their transcript, chasing down their guidance counselor or whoever it is at the school. Yeah, so as little as 1 week for students to go from applicant to admitted to VERTO.
I think as our time together ends, I think I'd like to summarize just why I feel like this program is so special. And I think maybe it's because I raised 4 kids, or maybe it's because I've raised hundreds over 30 years of educational consulting, but I think there's value in a gap year. I also think that there's something special about a program that offers this idea of global citizenship, that also gives students this opportunity to put their foot in the water of academia in a way that feels safe, supportive, with professors on designated sites where there's still that freedom, but there's also structure. And I think after COVID, so many students are taking the big plunge of a big university and are often finding themselves overwhelmed. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the nice thing is that there is an option for students to have that and build those launch muscles. I call it launch, those launch muscles, in a place that gives them a lot of empowerment and self-efficacy along the way, and a lot of choice. And quite frankly, because you have these partner schools, you've built these relationships that give students opportunities they might not have if they're applying right off the bat. So I can't thank you enough. I have been a fan of VERTO since I think the first year the doors opened, and I have been to Costa Rica. I know that option's not open anymore, but I get to go to visit Italy next September, and I look forward to just continued conversations. And I know people can reach out to you personally. We'll make sure that information and all of your website links that you've discussed today are in the body of our podcast transcript, so they can access it. Is there any last words?
I think, especially in today's day and age, not only do we have students expressing more interest in experiences like this, but I do think it is something fundamental for the American college student. I do think it's something that has a net good, both for the individual level, both for their communities they will impact back home, and also on a a greater scale for the United States as a country. So it is important for students to get out there to push the boundaries of their comfort zone and to build up intercultural competency, the skills they need to work with folks from different backgrounds. So Laura, I really appreciate you setting up this time to chat, and I hope it was informative for your audience. It's always a pleasure.
So great, so great. Thank you so much, Neal. Have a great day and stay warm. We're all you're in snow and cold, and we're in snow and cold, so stay warm, and I'll look forward to continued conversations.
All right, thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.